Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages. I am Sean Anderson, Most Valuable Podcast, and the upcoming segment is from our full Fast Break podcast that we recorded. And if you do want to check out that full podcast, head over to Blog Talk Radio/The Fast Break. You'll be able to find the full podcast over there. But anyways, let's move on now to the Boston Celtics, the other half of that first segment. So if you're joining us from that first segment, thank you so much. If you're listening on Blog Talk Radio, you rock. Listen to that whole podcast, Blog Talk Radio/Fast Break, if you want to listen to the full podcast. But anyways, let's jump into this. We're talking about who the Boston Celtics should take at third overall if they end up there. Because, again, nothing's finalized. I think, Dave, you said that it should be finalized if it does get finalized by Monday.
Potentially Monday,
Draft's Thursday.
By the time this is going up on YouTube, so perfect.
Exactly. So if you are here, they possibly traded for the third overall pick, and we're going to be talking about who they should be taking at the third overall pick. We really talked about Markelle Fultz in an extent to the Boston Celtics. That's what Dave and I had for pretty much all 5 mock drafts. It's pretty much a perfect fit in our mind, but obviously now it's not going to happen because you look at Isaiah Thomas' contract, it's coming up. He could sit behind T for a year, and then Fultz can step in and be the heir apparent to Isaiah Thomas Boston at that point guard position, but now it's a little murky. Now you have to wait on 2 other teams. We're pretty sure Fultz is going to be off the board with the 76ers taking him if that is a finalized deal. And then you look at that second overall pick. We just talked about Josh Jackson possibly going there. We just talked about Lonzo Ball going there. So those 2 are possibilities. Whoever does not get taken by the Lakers. So who should the Boston Celtics take at third overall and why?
I want to say Josh Jackson.
Okay.
I do. And
that's with Lonzo off your board.
Lonzo, because I think that the Lakers will go Lonzo. I look at it and I go, yeah, let's go Josh Jackson. Because like you mentioned, where it's Fultz and then it's Jackson are the top 2 on the big board. But then part of me is like, well, then I know Jalen Brown, you kind of eased him in and you're maybe not expecting him to take over that starting role in year 2, but it's kind of a similar situation. I know people are going to say, boom, BPA, take it, don't even worry about fit. But part of me goes, so if we take Josh Jackson, what's Jalen Brown's future with this team? Is it just a bench player? Is that what he's going to be? Or are we going to find a spot for Jalen Brown, who we just took with a top 3 pick last year?
No, I think that the problem here is Ingram to Jackson is a little different than Brown to Jackson. So that's my one concern. But I think that Jalen Brown showed quite a lot in limited minutes last year.
And that's the thing. He showed a lot.
And he's a guy who was a rawer prospect.
Rawer talent, yeah.
Rawer.
Unpolished prospect.
I'll be honest, had a lot of questions about him coming in. Thought he was going to be a bust.
So I don't know if that's necessarily showing that you give up on him by going after another wing. I think that it's more so just, like you said, it's best player available at that point, and everybody else is seen as a reach. I don't wholeheartedly believe in that, but if you look at the guys around him, say, things do go as expected, so you're left with the option of going either like Josh Jackson, J-Tay, possibly now there's talks about Dennis Smith Jr. Being interviewed again by the Celtics. So I think by no means is this set in stone at this time. Assuming this trade goes through, it looks very clear that they could go one of 3 ways. And I honestly think it's my most likely thing is going Jackson as best player available. I think best fit or most interesting fit would be putting someone like Dennis Smith Jr. on this team. Someone who has potential for superstar written all over him. Well, he's just got a couple question marks there.
And that fact, we don't know if De'Aaron Fox will get another interview, if they have De'Aaron Fox even on his radar.
Right.
De'Aaron Fox, we think, is a better point guard prospect. Well, I would agree with that, I think. Because he's the one that's usually going in our mocks ahead of Dennis Smith Jr.
I would take him ahead of Dennis Smith, but I love Dennis Smith.
Fit for the Celtics is what I'm thinking here. And this is already a team that has a extremely defensive guard backcourt outside of Isaiah Thomas. So I'm not really looking at them needing someone like Fox who is known for his pedigree on defense, but also has that holdback of, well, his shot's not quite right, and he's not our lead scorer. So say we do decide that Isaiah is not going to be our long-term solution because who wants a aging point guard coming up on 30? I think Dennis Smith Jr. is a guy who you look at and go, you know what, if we pick him up, we have an explosive guard off the bench, and he can grow underneath Isaiah for the next year.
The one thing I want to mention, though, is with that and thinking at least the shooting aspect of it, if they don't need to go defense, would Lonzo even be in the decision then? Because if they need at least a scorer to kind of fill that Isaiah Thomas position, if Lonzo's there, do they even go Lonzo?
If Josh Jackson is taken by the Lakers, I take him. He's the best point guard on the board.
But
and the thing that
at least fit-wise, I mean, Dave brings up a good point.
Here's the thing I was going to throw out, and of course this situation was Lonzo to the Lakers and with Josh Jackson. The thing that I think about is maybe I do go with De'Aaron Fox above Dennis Smith, because one of the big criticisms that we've heard from people in the sports media world about IT has been, how can you be the guy, but I have to take you off the court because you're a defensive liability? Where if De'Aaron Fox comes in, I'm looking at him being the guy. Yeah, he's got to work on a shot. But I can feel confident he can do that, but he can have a better ceiling as a defender at the point guard position.
My only point of contest there is that often in college we saw him not be the guy, but he was the guy to facilitate the guy. And that's my concern is I don't know that they have that go-to answer for scoring on this team. I mean, right now, Al Horford looks very good.
Could all change in free agency. They could get Gordon Hayward, but also, I mean...
But we don't know yet.
They
haven't hit free agency yet.
I'm saying they could, but I also look at what they have right now, and the one guy I do look at is Avery Bradley from the outside. I know you're not looking at him like Ricky. He's nowhere near what a Gordon Hayward would be to this team, but De'Aaron Fox could be someone where it's like... And of course, it comes into the decision of, what are you going to do at IT? You have to be thinking about that in the future, because if you have the thought of, I am not going to pay him, you might have to go point guard at this spot. And if I can get a facilitator to, okay, now in free agency I can bring in the guys like Hayward, and I already have guys like Bradley who can be on the outside. Fox drives in, dishes out, Bradley can hit the shot. Horford can be out there. He can stretch from outside. So they can have something special with someone who can drive and kick.
And at least they keep the facilitator. I mean, and you also look at what Isaiah Thomas made his money off of. It was coming off of screens, taking the ball, and then going to the hole. So I don't see De'Aaron Fox really being limited in that aspect. Well, I think De'Aaron Fox is limited in a shot, but at least driving, I don't think he's limited.
Finishing is the question for him.
True, but you also look at his speed, and you look at
makes openings.
You look at his body. There's a lot of room to grow there,
and the whole
and that's something. That, you look at Jalen Brown. He had a lot of room to grow. I think that's why some reason the Boston Celtics liked him. I think that could be a nice fit there for De'Aaron Fox in Boston.
Well, and the whole reason why they would do that and have Isaiah Thomas come off the screens is because of his height. You know, instead of having him with the ball in his hands...
He can duck under Horford's shoulder.
No, it's instead of having the ball in his hands and just drive in and get clocked, he can go, with his speed, go around the screen, and like all these plays that you see it on, when he's coming around that screen, it's like, wide open lane, get me the ball. Give me the ball, and now I can get it and drive it right up and in. Whereas Dennis Smith and De'Aaron Fox... You don't have to worry about that. And with Dennis Smith, the thing that I like from him is put the ball in his hands, and he's going to drive to the basket, and I don't have to worry about being creative with, how can I get him the ball and have him come off the screen.
He's got an it factor.
It's there. So either point guard they go with, I could be like, yeah, okay, that's a good pick.
See, but we go back to this, and if Josh Jackson ends up as a Laker, I don't think the Celtics go with Lonzo Ball at all. I honestly don't see him being a fit at all. I mean, if we're going with the same exact,
Suns would love it.
If we're going with the same exact, apparently they're trying to trade up to the two, but anyways, that's a different story. That's something where at least you look at Lonzo Ball, he's a guy that creates, and he's a guy that does not create his own shot. He's a guy that's not going to be a scorer at all. I mean, he's going to be a scorer in the sense that he will put up points, but sit around 10 to 15, but he's not going to be the guy that you go to. Isaiah Thomas is the guy that you go to. Dennis Smith could be the guy that you go to. De'Aaron Fox could be a guy that you could go to just run your offense and then also maybe possibly end up being a scorer. I don't see that in Lonzo at all. I don't see Lonzo being quick enough to go around those screens. I don't see Lonzo being quick enough to create that space and then ultimately driving past the defender with the guy still trailing him and then getting to the hole and creating enough room to at least throw up that shot. Yes, he's a good shooter from the outside and he's at least an efficient shooter from the outside, but you worry about that shooting motion, you worry about his ability to beat NBA defenders, and you see him get beat by a guy like De'Aaron Fox. I still look at this and I think that Lonzo Ball isn't that great of a fit for the Boston Celtics. I think that I think that's one reason why Fultz was mocked to the Celtics so heavily is because he was a nice fit there already, just replacing Isaiah Thomas. But I also think it's something where I look at Lonzo Ball, and he's really kind of, you mentioned him in our overrated prospects, he's kind of lost his luster, at least to me, because he's a great leader. He's a fantastic leader, has a great body, has an ability to create. But outside of that, I don't really see a ton of potential for him being a scorer.
Well, I'm going to say this, and I mean, you agree with me because in the last segment we had we all had the same pick, I think the point's kind of moot because we all said he's going to the Lakers. And
we don't know that.
That's what we think, though. Of course,
Georgios Papagiannis was the 12th pick overall.
Of course, we don't know.
Or 13th pick overall. We don't know shit.
Of course, we don't know that's going to happen. And I mean, if he does fall to 3, then you have that discussion. But in my mind, I have a hard time visualizing Lonzo falling past the Lakers. And if he does fall to the Celtics, they'll pass on him. The Suns will take him, and they'll be happy. I think that this decision is ultimately going to be, who do we take? Josh Jackson, De'Aaron Fox, or Dennis Smith. It's going to be one of 2 decisions. You're going to make 2. You're going to make one, which is part A, Jackson or the guard. If you say no to Jackson, you're going the guard. Okay, question B, Fox or Smith. And that's going to be what we're going to be dealing with at 3 for the Celtics, in my mind.
It's going to be interesting. And one thing with Josh Jackson, too, I think that if they do take Josh Jackson, that might make a guy like Jay Crowder at least expensible because...
Well, he's been in trade talks already.
Yeah, I mean, well, so is Avery Bradley, but I don't know if Avery Bradley's expensible. That's because you're bringing in a guy in Jimmy Butler or Paul George
But now
to
you
fill
can actively trade Crowder a little bit more seriously.
Well, but it's also something where at least I'm not exactly specific on Jay Crowder's contract specifics and how long he will be a Celtic, but you still look at what he brings to the table. He doesn't have that potential still. Great NBA player.
He's a free agent after the 2019-2020 season.
So he's got
3 more years.
He's got 3 more years. So, I mean, that's something where he's a guy that's controllable, a guy that can add to your team. Maybe you wait a year to trade him, and you trade him with 2 years left, or maybe you wait for it until he has 1 year left. But still, you look at that, you see Avery Bradley. I mean, the one thing that's going to be there is...
I didn't even see... You should mention the killer line. What's his contract? What's his year?
It's like 5
His year, he's got 6.7 this year, then 7.3, then 7.8.
Pennies on the dollar value.
And maybe they don't even have to trade him.
I mean, that's incredible.
But that's something where at least you look at that and maybe it makes him expensible because then you look at this lineup and you have a lot of players and you have a lot.
I think that's the thing. They're overloaded on players.
Well, and that's why I think Isaiah Thomas makes sense. At least Isaiah Thomas leaving makes sense because he's a guy that's aging. He's a guy that makes his money on his speed and his ability to get by players. But when you're 30 years old, when you're a guy with a max contract and who's going to be there for 5 years, when you're a guy like 35 years old, that speed, that quickness is going to be gone. So that's something where I at least look at that, and it's tough for me to say that Isaiah Thomas is going to be there for a couple more years. And I'm not saying that's because he's a bad player, but at least giving him a max.
They've got 2 actual big pieces in their backcourt that after the season they're going to have to decide on. Of course, first one is Thomas. The other one's Bradley. Bradley's a free agent after the summer.
He's younger, better shooter, and he fits the NBA better. He's a 3-and-D player. That's what you try to draft when you're a playoff team.
Yeah.
You try to draft a guy that can come off the bench and be a 3-and-D player.
I think that it's going to come, like I said, come down to Jackson and the guards. In my head, like I said at the beginning, I want to say, you know what, go BP. Like what we've heard in the comments this entire time whenever we do mock drafts, I've heard it like ad nauseum. Ricky, you're drafting too much for fit. Just go BPA. In the NBA, you go BPA. But I look at this pick and I go, well, with BPA and Jackson, you already have Brown, you already have Crowder. Like Dave mentioned with Crowder, the contract isn't that much money. You also have Jalen Brown on his rookie deal still, and they're both controllable. They're both free agents after 3 years.
It's something, too, that we haven't seen this type of scenario often. This is the Boston Celtics went to the Eastern Conference Finals.
60-win team.
You need a team. You need someone that fits because you're not going to be able to develop a guy. You need someone who fits into your system and fits into your future plans because that was something that was so great with Markelle Fultz to the Boston Celtics because he not only did fit into your future, he also fit to your team because he's replacing Isaiah Thomas and he's going to play the similar role and has the body type to do so.
Here's the thing and
he was BPA.
And me and Dave talked about this when we mentioned this with the Bulls. This is the thing I hate about the NBA season. I hate that the draft comes before free agency. I hate it. I can't stand it because if free agency came first, then Boston can be like, well, you know what? Let's go for Gordon Hayward. Okay, we have Gordon Hayward. Now what young talent do we want to bring in?
Now, yeah.
Right now, like, I'd sit there and maybe it's me being the optimist. I'd go, you know what? Screw it. Let's take one of the guards and let's make a hard push for Gordon Hayward. Because if you bring Gordon Hayward in,
I think it makes it fun.
Then there's that guy. Then there's that guy where it's like, okay, we can let IT walk, or we can move IT, or we can do something with IT.
At least a sidebar. I think it makes it more fun though, because then if you fuck up and you're like, oh, we're gonna get Gordon Hayward, let's go with the guard, and then you don't get him, and you're like, oh shit.
It's more
put
fun.
all your money on that chance.
I think it's fun.
It's more fun on an excitement level on our side. But if I was
say as an owner,
if I was an owner or a GM or a basketball operations guy, I'd be like, you know what, give me free agency first and let me get the guy before I draft, kind of like the NFL does.
Yeah, no, I think for me it's just that question of like the Celtics. You're talking about what is their need? Their need is rebounding. Like they're god awful rebounding. There's no one who I think they really value that highly with that early pick. So I go, like I said, best player available. There's no amount of wings that you can max out on. Wings in today's NBA is the most valuable position. Point guard is, like we talked about, it's oversaturated. There's a lot of guys who are really talented.
Rebound.
There are a lot of really
Jackson
talented guys.
Rebound, but he's not gonna be, you need a guy down low who can rebound for the Celtics.
I mean, I'll take anybody who can rebound. Anybody. You give me some guy. Anybody. So personally for me, it's I think that you go with the wing if the fit is right with Josh Jackson. And the big problem there is, are you going to turn this into the next move for a superstar if you whiff on a Gordon Hayward in free agency? Is this a stepping stone, or is this we're going to develop over time? And I know they won't get the most playing time here. It's not we're going to max them out at 30 minutes his rookie year. But, as long as they're patient, we're still going to be, a 45 win plus team every year going forward, because we have so much talent already collected here. Like it's a hard balance, because we know they're not good enough to go win a championship. But the question is like, at that point, are we going for developing the young guys on this team, or are we still in it for let's continue winning 50 games, 55 games a year?
Could you have both, though?
Could you right now they're sort of in that position.
And I think you could, because, again, I think Isaiah Thomas is the guy that does not fit that half and half. Because you can mix a guy like Avery Bradley, who's 26, 27, however old he is. You can mix a guy like Gordon Hayward, who, again, 26, 27. You can mix that where guys are still going to be in their prime for at least 3 more years and still at least going to be serviceable.
Prime's to 32.
Well, then 5 years.
I'm gonna throw this out there. Is this the Celtics and this whole move, and if it goes through, is this the Celtics kind of saying, we talk about windows all the time, LeBron's window, the Warriors window. Is this Danny Ainge saying, I can trade back, get the guy that, because I mentioned it in our Lakers segment, you said that one of the top 3 teams promised Jackson that they'd take him. Yeah. What if it was the Celtics? What if Danny Ainge said,
what if it was all lies?
We're taking you. Taking you. Watch it. And then they work this trade. They get a pick for the future. And this is Ainge just saying, we're just going to build these assets, get some of these young players, but that Nets trade I got, that window closed. Here's all these picks. Put it on the table. Here's a veteran coming in via trade, and then boom, they're over the top.
But also, you look at that. You're still getting Jalen Brown. You're still getting Josh Jackson.
So he's building
you still
this team,
have
and then he's just going to.
You still have that Nets pick next year. If that 76ers trade is that Laker pick, then you're getting 2 more.
Building the team.
And on top of that, you also have future concerns for the Clippers pick and Memphis pick down the road.
What I'm saying is then that's 4 possible starting players that you can get in the top 5 in 3 consecutive drafts. I mean, you could just build a team through that. I mean, you don't even need to wait on the picks.
Kind of like how the Warriors did.
Yeah, but they're doing that while winning the conference.
Yeah.
They won 60
I'm talking
games.
About like before that, like when they picked Steph, and then they got Clay, and then they got.
But what I'm saying is you can be still successful during that window. We know what you're saying. We understand what you're saying.
To be fair, that's more of a Cavaliers thing with how many top 5 players they have on their team.
How many they were? LeBron left. Here you go. Here's the first.
And then
here's MGK is sitting there with you. Okay, here's the first.
Well, he was just more talking about Caleb, LeBron, Kyrie, Tristan Thompson, Darren Williams, Derek Williams.
All the first round picks that they were giving him.
Who else was? I think JR wasn't. I don't think, but there was like 5 or 6
that's
players.
The point. It's just like, you look at these teams, and to be able to build that naturally, like you said, there's a lot of value in that. And I think that honestly, the Celtics aren't going to push it now. I think you hit that realistic moment when you played that series against the Cavs and went, yeah, no, we can't do this right now. But you know what we can do? We have every pick. Like, we have so many picks. We got all the picks. I want to go Donald Trump on this, but they've got a ton of picks. They've got guys overseas who
we got so
will
many
be prepped
picks.
to come
You're
over.
gonna get sick of drafting.
I'm sick of talking Celtics draft. No, I love that.
Well, that's one thing with the Celtics is that you look at all the fans' reaction on r/NBA and they're like, no, I don't want this. Give us Fultz. We want Fultz. We're used to Fultz. Don't give us the change. But still, I think it's something interesting where they might be shooting for that window. Maybe it's something where you see a guy with a lot of potential, a guy with a lot of BPA, or at least best player available. They thought Jalen Brown was that, Josh Jackson was that. You also, if you bring in a guy like Gordon Hayward, you bring in you keep around Avery Bradley, you keep around Jay Crowder.
Somehow
you keep
win
around
and develop at the same time.
Al Horford. Yeah, I mean,
unicorn level.
You're going to develop those kids. And even the guys next year, too, you're going to develop those kids while still getting playoff experience against probably guys like LeBron James, John Wall.
Yeah, watching the first two games of Jalen Brown versus LeBron James was thrilling. I mean, we watched a kid step out of college and against the best player in the NBA, and he held his own to an extent.
Yeah, he did good for a rookie against
those first two games. It was really impressive.
I'm going to throw this out there. Is it a Boston thing? Like, we see the Celtics, hey, I want all these picks, and then we look at their NFL team. Oh, first-round pick, now we'll trade back.
It's been like 5 years. Belichick's been doing that for 17.
Is it a Boston thing? Like,
doesn't happen
Belichick
to Bruins.
It, and then,
literally one
teams.
reference.
Two teams.
And Danny Ainge just started doing it.
Okay.
And it was because of one trade. But it was because of one trade. You're smoking too much. You're trying to connect too many dots here. You're trying to connect all the dots.
It's a Boston thing.
A couple things that I do want to bring up, Dave. I want to go back to the Lonzo Ball thing. If Lonzo Ball is still there, would they go Lonzo? Because I know Ricky
tried
said
to duck that. I'll be honest.
I know you did, but I want to hear your opinion.
All right. So if Lonzo Ball is for some chance on the board with them at the 3, I think they're in a rough position because honestly, I feel like Lonzo Ball, what he can bring is the intangibles and that 3-point shot and getting everyone involved. But again, it's how much do you value that in today's NBA, and where do you see that plugging into your team currently or your future team down the road? Because you're not picking guys for the next 3 years, you're picking guys for the next decade. Realistically, with the way we're tuning free agency and the player contracts these days, it's entirely team dependent. If you get drafted by the team, they'll be able to give you the most money, the best options, the longest deals. So I think really, if you look at it as a long-term pick, like, it's really hard to pass on Lonzo Ball at the 3 at that point for me, because to have someone with the potential that would be the best facilitator in the NBA in 5 years from now, and if he can contribute, I mean, anything realistically offensively, if he's just a 3-ball player, if he shoots 40% from 3 and 10 assists, like, I don't even care that he only shoots like 4 a game. Like, I'm happy at that point. That I would be happy with that point guard on my team. The problem is like, I look at that, and then I look at the potential for someone like a Fox or a Dennis Smith Jr., and I think both of them have rock star potential. I think both of them could blow the top off this league, and I have that concern. Like, are you going to feel regret because you could have had someone who is a stud, but you grab someone who is a great team player?
The thing that's interesting, though, about that and his fit to this team, I could see it being because Isaiah Thomas, because of his height and all the screens that they run, and he doesn't have the ball in his hands 100% of the time, I could see it being, like you said, okay, when the ball's not in your hand, you're going to be our 3-point shooter. You're going to be at the 2. And
no, because you have Avery Bradley.
Just listen. When Avery Bradley's not out there, because he's not going to play every single minute.
Just say second unit.
You could run a unit where IT's at the 1, Lonzo's at the 2, and because IT doesn't need the ball in his hands all the time, it can kind of be a kind of committee where sometimes it's IT that has the ball in his hands, sometimes it's Lonzo, until you decide, you know what, IT's not the picks. If you're going guard, that's where I think you go, and then Lonzo becomes your point guard.
I think
after
Lonzo's kind of fucking pointless at that 2 position. I don't think he's a dead eye shooter to be that, because you're just gonna be able to.
You're not loving the shoulder shot.
You're just gonna be able to put a guy next to him, stand next to him, and then you don't have to guard him, or I mean you have to guard him in a sense, but if he's just gonna stay beyond there.
development. All these prospects have the opportunity to develop.
Of course.
Yeah, I know.
Of course. The guy who goes 60th overall, look at Isaiah Thomas. He has the growth to develop. I understand that, but still. Anyways, we're going to throw you guys off. We're going to add one more final kind of mini segment here. It's going to be easy, though. All right? I'm adding you a softball. No, it's going to be a mini mock draft, all right?
Okay.
So we're just doing the top 3. I want to just clear it out, lay it out, because we talked about the top 3 picks.
Yeah.
Let's just lay it out so people know how to end it, how we're going to end it. So first overall, who you got?
Fultz.
It's Fultz.
Philadelphia 76ers. We're all thinking the Philadelphia 76ers take Markelle Fultz, and this, again, is if that trade goes through. Markelle Fultz going to the Philadelphia 76ers. Lakers, Dave, who are they picking?
Lonzo.
Ricky, you're saying Lonzo. I think they'll ultimately go with Lonzo too, but I think it's interesting.
Love it, but yeah,
and I love it. I think it'd be the best thing for the Lakers.
I think it's the best fit for the Lakers.
It's the best deal ever.
I don't know if it's the best thing. I think it's the best fit for sure.
What he can bring to that team, plus you get the added assurance of hometown kid from LA. And it's kind of, I think of the same thing when D-Rose came here, how much excitement there was around that. I feel the same exact thing if he goes there.
The only thing is Lonzo is likely, I know my voice cracked, is Lonzo as likable as D-Rose?
I would say so. I think the only thing you don't like about
was pretty funny.
The only thing you don't like about
JT saying we did a lot of fishing.
And here's the thing about Lonzo, it's we don't hate Lonzo. All the people that are
because no one knows Lonzo. You don't know him.
And the people that put hate on Lonzo are the ones that hate his dad.
Well,
that's it.
I think a move that was good. So
that's where it's like you got to switch it to where you don't hate Lonzo, you hate his dad.
I think a good move for them from this big baller brand, this whole thing, this whole family. I think the smartest move they did was go on to a late night show, but pick specifically. They went to LA. They went to the only late night show that was in LA. They went to Jimmy Kimmel, got interviewed. I think that was a smart move.
It was a great interview too.
I don't know if it's gonna happen. I don't know if he's likable as D Rose was, but still. Third and final pick, Boston Celtics is the kind of one that's up in the air. Ultimately, who do they go with? Because Lonzo's off the board. We all agree that Lonzo's off the ball.
Yeah.
Markel's off the board. Do they go Josh Jackson, Dave?
Yeah, I will take Jackson there. I think I'd be happy getting Josh Jackson to 3.
Ricky, pressure's on. These lights are hot.
I'm not going Josh Jackson.
That's fine.
What I'm not doing. I have a decision in my head between the guards, and I think I'm gonna go with Fox, but I almost wanted to go with Smith.
I want to go with Smith so badly. I want to be that guy.
Weirdly enough, I think Smith might be the better fit. I like it. And I like De'Aaron Fox, too. Honestly, like when I'm thinking about it, I think Josh Jackson's the last guy who would pick for the Celtics, but I think he's going to be the pick because I think Danny Ainge wants to go with BPA.
And I'll be completely honest, mine with the Celtics is kind of when I wouldn't pick Josh Jackson. I'm picking guard no matter what, but it's knee-jerk for Fox because I still think of everyone saying, well, how valuable can you be to this team if we need to take you off the court because you're a defensive liability at the 1?
The only reason I think is also going to be Josh Jackson and not a guard is because if you needed a guard, why the hell are you trading away from drafting the best guard?
Yeah, why would you trade Markelle Fultz?
And unless you're super sold on Fox, Smith, et cetera,
Or they promised.
Should be interesting.
Clearly the Celtics promised him.
It'd be crazy, though, if
maybe.
I think it'd be crazy. I think our boys who are Suns fans.
Riley.
Give it.
I'm thinking Celtics. I'm thinking
Riley
Celtics.
doesn't even know who you are.
Straight disrespect.
Before I said Riley, you were
Kev,
putting out Suns. Thought you were talking about Celtics. Sorry,
I'll give a shout out to our Kev buddy, our Irish buddy. He's the actual Suns fan.
Falls to the 4.
Yeah, that's perfect. And they were so pissed about losing that 2 spot because they wanted Jackson. Now if they get Jackson, boom, it's a perfect fit. And then JT's there for the Kings. It's crazy. This is why the draft's fun now.
I'm hyped again.
Anyways, tell us who you think is going to be the top 3 picks. It should be a blast. But anyways, for Ricky Widmer, for Dave Oster, I'm Sean Anderson. We'll see you next time. Thank you. Oh, shit. It's just one of our videos scared me a little bit. Don't forget to check out that one. And also don't forget to check out patreon.com/mostvaluablepodcast. But thank you so much for watching. We'll see you next time.